Welcome to this edition of SAU's Report. I'm Angie Loomis.
And I'm Jonathan Wolfe.
Today we have head women's softball coach Jen Pagani with us. Coach Pagani, how did you get to be at SAU?
Well, after Coach Plaskowski left, I saw the opening in the paper, in the NCAA news, and I sent in my resume, and I'd already been in contact with Coach Adcox about the position, and they called me in for an interview. I came in, interviewed with the president, or actually I think the president wasn't here at the time, but I interviewed on campus all day and met Coach Laurendine, the SWA, and a lot of other people on campus, and about, I want to say 3 weeks later, they called me and told me that they wanted me to take the job. So.
And you were at Delta State before this, right?
Yes.
And what did you do there?
I was an assistant softball coach.
Okay.
Didn't teach any class or anything, just assistant softball coach.
Now, did you play college there, or did you?
No, I did my graduate work there. Was a graduate assistant there for a year and a half. We had a Title IX lawsuit actually, and that's how I got the assistant coach's position. But finished up my grad school in about a year and a half, and then got promoted to full-time.
What are some of the major differences between being an assistant coach and now that you're head coach?
I was very fortunate while I was at Delta State to work under Coach David Kewen, who did an excellent job. He empowered me beyond anything I'd ever had before. So I was very fortunate. He let me deal with
Mm-hmm.
recruiting, game management, field maintenance, all aspects of the game. So I think that I was pretty prepared when I got here. The biggest change would be decision making. Now all the decisions lay on my shoulders, as opposed to giving my input to the boss and then him making the decision. The decision lays on my shoulders now. So I think that's one of the biggest differences.
So do you feel a lot of pressure from that? I mean, is it a pressure-filled job? I mean, you're coming into a program that has had some success in the past, and being a first-time head softball coach, is there some pressure there that's, or do you enjoy the pressure? Is that?
I like the pressure. At Delta, we had a pretty successful program there when I was there for 3 seasons, and we did pretty well. So I like that. I like the pressure of doing well each day and being a competitive team each season. But the pressure of the decision making and all that, the only thing I can do is do the right thing. Try to do the right thing at all times, and if I do that, then that's half the battle, I think. So. Ethically.
Falls into place. Then, huh?
Exactly.
Now you said that you were coaching at Delta State. Where did you play ball at? Did you play?
I played ball. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I played ball at Geneva College. It's a NAIA school in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. It's probably 20 minutes from my house. I wanted to stay close to home, and I couldn't decide whether I wanted to play basketball or softball in college. My first love was basketball, but I was always better at softball. And I wanted my parents to watch me play and my grandparents, so I stayed around Pennsylvania to play ball. So it was a great experience. I would have done it all over again the same.
Not to get off of sports or anything, but is there a big difference between being from the north and coming to the south? I mean, is it?
I think it's different. Like I went to being from Pittsburgh, I went to Indiana and was an intern there, assistant sports information and softball before I went to Mississippi to Delta State. But I think that if I hadn't gone to Indiana, it would have been a big culture shock.
Really?
Yeah, I think Indiana kind of buffered me a little bit.
So how do you handle being so far away from your family and friends?
It is a hard thing. Like I said, I stayed around there. But I think while I was at Geneva, I grew a lot. I think that I got used to being on my own. Sometimes I didn't even come home, the whole time at Thanksgiving, and then we were playing basketball. But being in Indiana, that was about a 5.5 to 6 hour drive. And then Mississippi is about a 16.5 hour drive. So here it's about almost 20 hours. I talk to my parents every day on the phone, and my grandmother and my niece and nephew and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just used to it now. It's hard, but I've adjusted well.
So now you're still in the South, but how do you like the atmosphere now that you're at SAU?
I love it. It's everybody, even at Delta, even here, everybody's been so wonderful. The atmosphere at Southern Arkansas is wonderful. All the professors, teaching a class, this is my first time teaching as well. Being in that position, all the faculty have been wonderful to me, accepting me and helping me, teaching me the ropes, and everybody in the athletic department as well. Coach Adcox, Coach Laurendine, she's helped me. I go to her with questions every day. Everybody's just been wonderful, helping me adjust.
You seem to be very family-oriented. Do you like to stress that to your team as being somewhat of a family? I mean, is that...
I think that's very important. I think especially with society today, it's so, you know, the family means so many different things, you know, these days with divorced parents and, you know, teenage parents and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important to teach them, you know, that family is important, that their parents are important, to spend time with their family. You know, when we have time off, I say, go home, you know, spend time with your family. You know, I think that's huge. I think that's that's one of my biggest concerns, portraying that to the team.
What do you, see, you've got most of the, well, you didn't recruit any of these ladies here that are playing now. Has it been a big adjustment to really get to know, I mean, you haven't started, when did your first game? Let me ask that question first.
123 days.
123 days, okay, so you have
February 10th.
at least 123 days more to get to know them. Has it been a real adjustment, or have you found it easy to get to know most of the women that are playing here?
Well, I think that some people make that adjustment easier. You know, you're always going to have people who come up to you and want to get to know you better. Like when I first came into town, Angie and a couple other girls made the effort to get to know me, you know, and some of the freshmen did as well, because, you know, as soon as I found out about this, I started calling all my new team, and I couldn't get a hold of a lot of them. But some of these freshmen, they were recruited, and the man that recruited them left, so they were, you know, at a loss. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether to come or go, you know, so that was hard. So I had to kind of step in there and, you know, meet that head on and make sure that I comforted them, if that doesn't sound too. But I think that, you know, it's a give and take situation, and I think some girls have made more of an effort to get to know me. But, you know, we always, you know, some of the girls come over and we watch movies sometimes and have little pizza parties here and there and stuff like that, just so they can get to know me as, you know, more than a softball coach, you know, kind of away from that.
The team has a large freshman class, right? So how do you deal with adjusting to all the new people in college and their first time playing college ball?
It's hard, and I think that we have 6 senior leaders on the team, and they've done an excellent job. What we did was we grouped up the seniors with the freshmen and the upperclassmen with the freshman roommate situation. So I think that really helped a lot. I think that got, it kind of gave the freshmen a mentor. You know, where's class? What time's the cafeteria open? You know, the nursing, all that kind of stuff. Just, it helped them adjust in that way. And I had to do a lot of intervening, I guess that'd be the word, just to help them, making sure that they knew everything was going to be okay. But they've adjusted well. There have been problems, but, you know, we've kind of grabbed them by the horns and taken care of them. But it's like that with any growing process.
Definitely.
And so how do you get your freshmen adjusted on the field as well? Because it is a different level of play.
The biggest thing I like to enforce to them is that this isn't high school anymore. And that's one of the biggest adjustments college kids have. Any football, basketball, baseball, I'm sure, anything. Is, you know, they were obviously talented in high school, so they come to college, they're recruited, they're getting a scholarship, what have you. So, you know, they come in thinking, you know, hey, I'm going to play and all this stuff, but I really try to stress roles, you know, the importance of knowing your role, the importance of realizing that we have an all-conference, all-region pitcher on the mound. You know, you might have to wait your turn a year, you know. We're getting you in here to learn the program, to learn how things work, and we're going to come to you next year more than this year. You know, so I think that the more that I, you know, stress the importance of the role and accepting your role and knowing your role, I think that helps them a lot make that adjustment. And that's something you know, have to do every day. And that's not, you know, you can't just say at the first meeting and let it be over with. You know, every game, every practice, if they don't get enough reps, they don't get enough cuts, they're going to, you know, you have to tackle it every day.
What do you emphasize as far as your team? Do you want them to be an offensive team? Do you want, I mean, obviously you want to be balanced, I guess. But I mean, what do you stress the most? What do you want out of your team to, you know, looking for like defense? Do you want you to have a, you know?
Well, I guess I want to live in a perfect world, but I'm a really defensive, fundamental person. I think that, you know, you have to have solid fundamentals in defense. I make the girls do, you know, 1 million fundamental defense drills every time, like as soon as they're done throwing, every day, just because I think it's so important, because the fundamentals of softball and baseball are throwing and catching, and I think that's important. That's where 1 million of the errors are made, and I think that's important. But also offense. when I'm recruiting kids, for the future, and what I've done in the past is I look for kids who can hit. Kids who have natural ability to hit the ball, because if you can hit, you can play. And if you have a good pitcher and solid defense, if you give them a run or two, you're going to win that ball game. Softball, it's not like baseball or slow pitch softball. It's not like 24-22. That's not the final score. It's college softball, fast pitch softball is scores of 1-0, 3-2, 2-1. And it's whoever gets that first run up there and holds on and plays solid defense, that's the team that's going to win. So that's kind of like a balanced view of that, I guess.
So what is like your opinion of how your team's going to do this year compared to the rest of the conference?
putting you on the line here.
I know, it's a tough one. I think that we're in a really tough conference. We're in a really tough conference. The East and the West Division both. On this side, the West Division, we have Arkansas Monticello, who's been a powerhouse last year. For the last couple of years, actually, ever since I've been in the Gulf South Conference. And then you have Delta State, and I did all the recruiting for Delta State, so I know that they're gonna be pretty loaded this year. And then you have like the Hendersons and the Wachitas. There's been coaching changes there, so I think that they're gonna be pretty effective as well. Another thing we have to look at is Mississippi University of Women closed, so a lot of those athletes who could really play ball transferred to Henderson. So in some key positions where they're going to have some really good girls there. So I think that's something we have to be on the lookout for. On the other side, on the East Division, you have West Florida, who is a powerhouse every year, great coaching staff. You have Alabama Huntsville, who's been to the regionals numerous amount of times. You have West Alabama, who's always kind of scary. Lincoln Memorial, who can be scary. You have a million different teams. Valdosta, who went to the regionals. I know they were there when I went with Delta 2 years ago. I think they were one win away from going to the World Series. So we have a lot of good teams. But I'm not selling us short. We're just as good. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a competitive year.
So what game are you looking forward to the most?
That's a trick question. I love playing Monticello just because it's so much hype, and I think Delta and Monticello also had a little rival, but I guess it's worse here, from what Coach Blaskowski's told me and from what the girls have told me. But I think the Delta game, I'm going to try not to put a lot of pressure on myself for that game. We're just going to go into it, but just going back there it'll be the non-conference doubleheader at Delta. But we'll play them at home for conference. And last year, as everybody's aware of, Southern came to Delta and swept us when I was at Delta, and that was the worst week of my life. So
And one game was a run rule, right?
yeah, yes, you have to bring it up again. One game was like 14-2, so it was they really played well that weekend. So I'm hoping we can do it again. We'll be at our home field. Delta will be coming to town, so that one's kind of special to me. So
what would it be like to beat Delta? I mean, since they were that's where you were, and now for them to come to you, and you're a head coach now,
Yeah.
and you want to beat them, of course. I mean, how'd that make you feel?
It would make me feel great. Coach Kuhn is a wonderful person, and him and his family and all the girls there, they mean the world to me, and it's gonna be tough, but to beat them would be so wonderful. I'm not gonna lie about it. It'd be great. It'd be a great win, especially for the girls, because they did it before and they know they can do it again. So it's gonna be exciting.
What when you get into with a bunch of kids or girls, I guess, ladies or men, you got to have somewhat of a disciplinary, I would think, a disciplinary action. I mean, you got to make sure you can control your kids, because you're not always with them on the field,
Right.
and are not always with them when they're not on the field, and so you have to make sure they respect you, right, and know that you are going to be watching them. I mean, is that something, because being your first time head coach, is that something you've had to deal with in the past at Delta State being an assistant, or do you look at it now as I really want to keep an eye on my kids, because you want to keep them straight? I mean, there's regulations with NCAA
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right.
Is that a tough chore, or do you just trust your kids and just say, hey, I'm going to trust you to do the right thing,
Right. Well, I never liked, I as soon as I wanted to coach, I was like probably 10, and reading books, and I always try to go to conventions, hear people talk, look at great coaches and all that kind of stuff, and hear what they say. But I've always thought that if you make too many rules, I think it kind of puts limits on what you can do. You know, I think that too many rules, you're just asking for trouble. And my philosophy is to treat them like adults. I'm very blessed because college softball is completely different than a lot of other sports. My girls make over a 3.0. My girls come from good family, you know, I mean, and that's not always, but, you know, good families, good solid families who support their kids. And so I'm blessed in that way. But, you know, there are going to be problems, but I like to kind of treat them like adults, but let them know that, you know, if something happens, I'm gonna take action against it. So I think it's kind of a give-take situation. So
Earlier this season, you had to do a pretty big disciplinary action.
Yes.
How did that all come about?
Well, there was I had hired a graduate assistant, and you know, some things had happened within the team that I'm not going to mention, but you know, it didn't agree with my philosophy. It didn't agree with what I wanted for this program. It didn't coincide with where I want this program to go. And you know, the girls had seen me, hadn't really seen me, you know, mad yet, and so I just, you know, took advantage of the situation and said, hey, you know, I'm not going to stand up for this. I'm not going to stand for this. You know, if you make mistakes, if you do the wrong thing, if you make poor choices, you can't do that on the softball field. You can't do that in life, and you're going to have to pay for it. You know, there's always going to be consequences. So we proceeded to have a nice little conditioning session, and you know, the girls understood it, even though they didn't like it. They understood it, and I think that it kind of nipped it in the bud, if you may. I think that it helped. I think it was a good time. It was good timing, because it really let everybody know how much I cared about the program and how much I wanted it to go in the right direction. So I think it was a blessing in disguise.
So how did that initially make you feel? It's like your second week to school, and you have to jump right in with disciplinary action.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was a good thing simply because, you know, it was like, you know, coming here, I'm an easy person to get along with. You know, I treat people how I want to be treated. I treat people like adults, you know, and I think that sometimes people can overlook that and kind of take advantage of it in certain ways. But I think that this happening, I think it kind of nipped that too, because they realized, oh, wait a second, you know, if we mess up, if we make poor choices, someone's going to get dismissed, someone's going to be, you know, we're going to have to run 8 miles, whatever the consequence is. So, we moved past it, and it was a good experience. It was a learning experience for everybody, so.
You're getting into your first season as a head coach, and I mean, it's got to be an exciting feeling to I mean, like you said, you have all the pressure is on you, you know, and you've got a great program here, but do you really want a lot of, I mean, obviously, I guess you do want a lot of support, and a lot of people to come to your games and stuff. What are you going to do to try to, are you going to try to get more support out of your team, more fans to come, or is you just going to you know, play it like it is, and, you know, I mean, just, you know, go on a winning program and say, hey, we're going to win ball games, you can come see us or not. I mean,
well, I think it's important to get community involvement. I think it's important to get, you know, school community, university involvement. I think that there's a million things you could do, you know. I was the game coordinator at Delta, and I would do, we did a Strike Out for Cancer Day, and we got a lot of people to sponsor us, and we, you know, got posters and handouts and flyers from the Cancer Society, and we raised over $1,500 for cancer and had probably 500 people at our game. You know, I have little league teams come out, you know, and recognize them. And one thing that I like to do is kind of, instead of like a whole senior day, for one day, kind of just promote one senior each home game. Because I think that kind of makes them feel special. You know, it's one day completely for them, and you know, you get a lot more people there too. I think that can attract people as well. So there are so many things you can do, and I think community involvement is so important, because without this community, this university wouldn't stand alone. So I think it's definitely important, and I will be, you know, doing a lot of different things, and not necessarily not fundraisers, just getting people to our games, because it's so good to turn around and see 150 people at your game, you know, the basketball team or the football team behind the fence, and, you know, your athletic director standing there. It's a very comforting feeling as a coach, so.
And on that same note, how do you get, like, not just people from the community to come watch the games, but like players from the community to want to play in your program?
Well, one thing that, you know, as soon as I got here, people were asking for camps. Everybody wanted clinics and all that kind of stuff. And we did one in El Dorado probably the second week I was here. And it was a good little, you know, clinic. There were probably 50 people there. And that's one thing that I'm probably going to be doing a lot more of, are camps and clinics. One thing I enjoy doing are, you know, just 2-hour hitting clinics or pitching clinics or catching clinics, defense, offense. Very, you know, fundamental, specific clinics for the community, and not even charging that much money for it, just getting them out there. You know, granted, we have to, you know, make a little something off it, you know, for fundraising efforts, but, you know, just to get the community involvement, get the kids to come see what we're about. I know that camps can be such a great thing for that, simply because at Delta we had, I want to say, 3 people play for that team now that we just got the opportunity to see at camps, you know, and they're starters. So, I mean, it's out there. If kids want to come to your camp, that's a great way to see kids. It's a great way to recruit kids, so.
So is that going to be a challenge to you as far as recruiting? I mean, you said you recruited a lot of the kids at Delta State that are there now. Is that going to be a challenge? Are you excited at that? I mean, are you going to really try to venture, not just in South Arkansas, obviously, but try to go to Louisiana and Texas and recruit out of there? I mean, is that...
Yeah, that's one thing I'm going to do. Is I have a lot of connections in St. Louis, the St. Louis area, in Missouri. I have some connections in Indiana. You know, a couple back home, even though no one from Pennsylvania wants to come here. It's too far away, you know. And,
hey, you're here.
I know. That's what I always say. I'm not going to give up on it yet. But you know, there's a lot of different places. Louisiana, we've got some good contacts down there as well. And I'm going to get where I want to, you know, my goal is to take this program to another level. It's already there, you know, it's getting there, but my job is to get it to the next level. And, you know, that comes from me, you know, standing in what I believe in, you know, with my philosophy and all that kind of stuff. But also, I think it's important that you got to get players, you know, you got to get athletes who can play the game. And I'll go wherever I need to go to get them here, so.
And on that same note, how would you, as a high school student, and you wanted to come to SAU, what advice would you give to them to, you know, kind of get their foot in the door to play college sports? Email,
call, you know, send video, send tape. A lot of coaches don't like that, but at least that's something you can see. You know, I've probably received 15 tapes in the last 3 days. I mean, people just send tapes, yeah, and it's like I don't get to watch them every day, but you know, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to watch probably about 40 tapes that I've gotten in this last week and a half. You know, but I mean, I'll look at that and I'll see something if I like it. And the other thing is, it's not necessarily, I'm not just going to throw it away. I have coaches networked throughout, you know, throughout the nation. And if I see somebody, if so-and-so at UCA is looking for somebody, I want to say, you know what, I don't need this left-handed hitter, you know, you might need them. You know, and so I'm helping that person out as well. I'm helping the coach out and I'm helping the student athlete out. You know, it's more than about just being selfish and taking what you can get. You know, you got to try to help people along the way. So that's always worked pretty well for me.
We're about out of time. You are excited about, what did you say, 123 days to your first game.
Yep.
And how many games do you play in the season? Do you know exactly?
We have 54 on our schedule right now.
54 games.
And that's not counting the conference tournament.
Right. And so you'll be having about half of those home games?
No.
No?
Only 13.
Only 13 home
Yes,
games. So
yes.
so we're going to have to get the crowd,
Yes.
the community to know when they're out, because you want to
Definitely.
get them there as much as possible.
Definitely.
So. Well, good. It's been good talking to you.
Yes, to you as well.
And good luck to you on your season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And so that's another edition of the SAU Report. I'm Jonathan Wolfe.
And I'm Angie Loomis.